Good morning, all. So it's really nice to be at a physical conference after a while. And of course, with technology, we are very happy to have hundreds of virtual audiences with us as well. Welcome all to this first panel discussion of Singapore Maritime Network Conference 2022 in Singapore. First of all, a huge thanks and appreciation to Team MSN, including Kathy and Rob, for organizing this conference and for the invitation to moderate this amazing panel. We are talking today on the role of leaders and policymakers in digital transformation, which includes a discussion on building a coherent and comprehensive approach to digital transformation, leveraging return on investment and importance of purpose in digital transformation strategy. So this, I think, is a very important discussion and will hopefully set the tone for the rest of the conference today. Let me start by introducing myself before I ask the speakers to introduce, the rest of the speakers to introduce themselves. I'm Punit and I have multiple roles that I play, and the relevant ones today is I sit on the board of Klaveness Asia, part of Toward Klaveness, and I've been in commercial shipping for over 27 years, and fortunate to have been involved in internal transformation of Klaveness Dry Bulk till 2020, when I moved eventually into a board role at Klaveness Asia. As you saw, I'm also fortunate to be one of the Maritime Digitalization Playbook Ambassador, and I hope to also learn and share a lot of practical insights on digital transformation through the speakers here. We have a great panel for this discussion, as you can see. Mr. Andrew Tan, Managing Director of Temasek International, Mr. Anurag Mathur, Managing Director of V-Ships Asia Group, Mr. Demetris Chrysostomou, Managing Director, Asia Region of Columbia Shipmanagement, and finally, Mr. S.K. Lim, Managing Director of Pacific G2 Ocean. So I would just request each of you to just provide a brief introduction within 2 minutes, maybe, in the same order that I just mentioned. Andrew, over to you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be back here in an in-person event. It's been quite a while. See many familiar faces, some of whom I've not seen for some time, but great to see everyone. I'm currently with Temasek International. Prior to that, I was with the Maritime Port Authority and also the Environment Agency and a series of other appointments in the public sector, largely over the last 30 years. The last 3 years, I've been with Temasek, strategy, enterprise development, and now international policy and governance, including audit itself. So I've been following developments in the maritime sector for quite a while and continue to do so. And in my last role, particularly with the Maritime Port Authority, I think many of the initiatives that you read about or heard about today were initiated during the time that I was with the Maritime Port Authority. This was pre-COVID. It wasn't as much anything to do, which we can come back to, except for us to stay ahead of the competition and to stay relevant. But we can come back to this topic later on. So let me move on to
Anurag, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Punit. I'm really excited to be here again. As Andrew said, first time in 2 years that we gather in such numbers. So I hope this will continue, and we'll have more and more opportunities to interact. But once again, my name is Anurag Mathur. I'm the Managing Director for V-Ships Asia Group here in Singapore. Started my career with sailing on board ships in V-Ships. I sailed for almost 17 years before and through the various roles before I came to V-Ships about 4 years ago, as I said. Absolutely excited to be here today. V-Ships, just to introduce V-Ships, we are one of the leading ship management and maritime service provider company in the world, with about 30 present in about 30 countries, 60 offices. We are close to our partners, customers, and we of course, as one of the leading companies again, invested or understood the need for digitalization and investment into the technology to be bringing the efficiencies to our clients. So I'm really looking forward to be part of this journey today.
Thank you. Thanks, Anurag.
Hi, good morning to everybody. It's good to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I'm Demetris Chrysostomou. I'm the Managing Director of the Asia region for Columbia Shipmanagement. I also hold the hat of Group Director for Marketing and Business Development. I've been with Columbia Shipmanagement for 24 years, so I've kind of seen a lot of the transformation, and hopefully today I'll be able to share with you a little bit of my insights of what I've seen over the years and what we've done at Columbia Shipmanagement as part of a digital transformation journey. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Demetris. SK.
Hi, my name is SK Lim. I'm the Managing Director Pacific for G2 Ocean. G2 Ocean is a joint venture between two Norwegian shipping companies, Gearbolt and Grigstar. We are currently the world's largest operator of open hatch vessels, about 100 vessels trading globally. So I've been with G2 Ocean for about 2 years now, and last year we did a major company reorganization, and we now make Singapore is now our hub for Pacific region. So I'm also quite involved in the digitalization initiatives within G2 Ocean. So happy to share. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. So we have a stellar panel, and I think it's going to be interesting discussing something which I think is crucial. While technology is very much at the core of transformation, so are the people. So now one image which has remained in my mind for years when talking about digital transformation is the image of smaller lane or maybe lanes that are merging into a busy expressway. So according to my mind, digital transformation is exactly like that. So two things happen when a lane merges into an expressway. The first thing is that all vehicles must follow the same rules and give way to the expressway vehicles. And the second thing is the traffic slows down for a while as the vehicles start adjusting to each other. And then the pace picks up. So this is exactly what happens when you have a transformation process. Another aspect is the key role that the leaders play in this transformation process or this merging. The CEO sets the rules, the head of HR, the CHRO, provides the drivers, and the CDO, CTO, the head of transformation, provides these vehicles. The entire leadership must set out the path and ensure the journey is as smooth as possible. And one thing in my mind is very clear from this picture. The CEO plays a vital role in this process. And what is even more important is the need to have an unobstructed vision and purpose to proceed. In case of Klaveness, our vision, improving the nature of shipping, was and remains a key guiding force, a pole star in this transformation process. So my question to each of the panelists would be, what vision and purpose of each of your organization is when it comes to digital transformation, and how do you go about communicating and implementing it? So if you can just share it with, maybe I can start with SK this time. What is the vision? How do you go about communicating and implementing it?
I think for us, we try to make it simple because I think when we talk about digital transformation, and I've been with a few companies prior to this, I think when we make it too complicated, when it is sort of driven by the chief information or chief technology or chief innovation officers, it tends to be very technical. And I think for us here, what we're trying to do is make it simple. Our CEO is involved. We are the senior leadership team. We are involved. We are in the steering committee. I think what is important is communicating to the people, not in technology terms, but in simple languages, like what we're trying to achieve. I think for us, shipping companies, basically a lot of shipping companies are still way behind the journey. We have started a journey. We've done quite well. I think the challenge has always been getting people on the expressway.
Yes, exactly.
Right? There is a tendency for people to fear technology. Right? I myself, I'm not a technologist, but I'm not a techie. But if we explain to the people what we're trying to achieve from an efficiency perspective, they will understand. Right? So what we have learned is basically don't push too much on the technology itself. We try to sell how this technology will make their job easier, faster, more efficient. So that's how we approach it.
Okay, great. Demetris?
In Columbia Shipmanagement, our vision for the digital transformation is very much linked to the corporate vision of the company. So the corporate vision of the company is to be the leading ship manager in the world. To achieve that, of course, we need to get people on a journey. We need to move away from the legacy systems. Especially ship management is pretty well known for holding on to legacy systems. So transformation is definitely moving away from that. And then key to this is also the corporate strategies. And we believe that ship management, traditional ship management as it stands, needs to evolve. Our clients today are looking for more than just traditional ship management. To evolve and to meet those expectations, ship management has to also evolve in the future. So what we have done is we believe that we have to be a complete maritime service provider. To become a complete maritime service provider, you have to have the digitalization and the technologies to give value-added services to your clients. And that has been the key for us. The communication part of it, I very much agree with what SK said. You have to keep it simple. It has to be driven from the top. And then you have to engage people. You have to incentivize people to be engaged in the transformation. Otherwise, of course, it won't be accepted. So that's pretty much how we've focused on it. And then importantly, of course, always it's got to be fit for purpose. Not all new technologies are relevant to all companies. Every company has its own environment, and you have to make sure that what you are implementing is fit for the purpose and for the people and for your clients.
Thanks. Absolutely. Andrew, maybe your thoughts.
I agree with the earlier comments about leadership from the top. I think that's absolutely critical itself. I would add that from my own experience, having led transformation across both public and now in the private sector itself, a large organization like National Environment Agency having to deal with so many touch points across the country, across air, land, and sea, environmental issues, Maritime Port Authority having to look at the new port and also having to keep ourselves abreast of all the developments happening in the industry. And even in Temasek itself, as a global investment company that's headquartered in Singapore, we also have to keep up with the competition in terms of other, we are not a sovereign wealth fund, but there are other sovereign wealth funds, private equity funds, even family offices coming into the space of investment that we are in. And across all these entities, in my last 3 roles, I would say technology has been a key factor as part of the overall transformation effort. And in each of these organizations, I would say that you need to really understand the DNA within the organization itself. So in the case of the National Environment Agency, I would characterize it as almost you are standing on a burning platform, because the challenges you face are immense. You had to deal with, at one stage, you had dengue cases were on the rise, haze was upon the region, you had rising public demands, you had public hygiene, food poisoning incidents, and then you only had so many people that were able to deal with all these challenges, right? And you can think of a similar analogy over in the maritime sector when you have that many people to deal with so many things, right? And I find that you would have to find out where the pain points are, because if you can't cross that pain point threshold and address the immediate pain points on the ground, all this talk about transformation is not going to resonate with the folks on the ground, because all they see on a day-to-day basis are the problems that stand ahead of them, right? And that's where I think if you were to bring in a transformation in a situation like this, then I would suggest you strongly address those pain points first before you get that larger conversation off the ground. And then that's where you will see greater traction come in. In the case of Maritime Port Authority, you have a fairly successful agency that has been, as Yihan mentioned, top of the ranks in many categories. So you have to relook at it from a different lens. It's not a burning platform. You need to find a burning cause, right? In order for them to see that this is the next boundary, next level of growth. And that's where all these ideas around the fact that we can actually position ourselves as a smarter, more efficient, more intelligent hub was the idea that was seeded right at the start of my term, in order to get people seized with this idea of there's something more aspirational than what they already have been successful in. And lastly, in Temasek itself, I think the whole investment industry is challenged by a more difficult environment altogether because of regulatory changes, the bifurcation that you see across different markets in the world, US, China, Europe, which means that your license to operate comes under a lot of scrutiny, where you invest, how you invest. And at the same time, the whole landscape has changed where other than the traditional areas of investment, you're seeing the tech disruption that's taking place. And obviously, tech itself is also not that straightforward in the light of all these bifurcations that I talked about. So you have to find a different way of operating. And when you're faced up with the challenges of other investment entities coming into your space, then you have to find new ways and new partnerships and also leverage on technology. And this is where you have to then experiment with many of these new types of business models, working with your partners so that you can also leverage on their expertise and also build up an ecosystem, which we can come back to that topic later on. So a different challenge altogether, but nonetheless, technology plays a key role in this, and you have to really understand the nature of your organization and address the immediate challenges first before you can get that larger conversation off the ground would be my advice. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Anurag?
No, thanks, Andrew. Quite well described the whole process. I mean, it really needs to, any transformation needs to come from overall company vision, right? What are your objectives? What are you trying to achieve, right? And as a service provider, maritime service provider, we are serving our clients. And in order to understand and really deliver on the expectations, you need to evolve. You need to really continue investing into people, into systems, into technology, to be able to enable you to deliver what is expected. So once you have a vision, you are then trying to create a solution where you take your people together, right? And many a times it may not be easy, right? Because people are used to a particular kind of working style and environment, right? So the leadership has to be collaborative, understanding, sympathetic to all the needs of internal and external clients, right? And on top of that, when you create a system or invest into a technology which has to be purposeful, which has to be with a motive to improve your customer experience, because finally that's what we are all trying to achieve, how do you bring it into your day-to-day life, right? Sure. Into your operational thing. How does it? I mean, our industry is so, as Demetris mentioned, we are so much living with the legacy things still continuing in the present generation, that how do you then fulfill or meet the expectations of transparency, right? How do you have all this information available to make it be working for you? So these are some of the things which you need to address. Take your people together, let them see the shared vision, let them be part of this, so that you can get the acceptance from your colleagues to be working and accepting this, right? And it's a journey. It takes time. It takes training. And just on V-Ship's experience, I can say that our journey, this digital journey, started probably 20 years ago, and still has not finished. I don't think it will ever finish, because we need to evolve all the time.
Absolutely.
But then it allows you to much. I mean, what we can achieve today, of course, is nothing. Is much more compared to what we could do yesterday. But again, sharing your best practices, allowing people to work with the data, so that they can really feel themselves. How do they see being empowered by these changes is extremely critical, right? And that's what a leader needs to drive.
Sure. Thanks a lot. I think I would just like to add one thing, that when we started on the Klaveness, at least when I was involved in that, we had to answer two simple questions for all the employees. What's in it for me? Yeah. And what can I do? So if you can actually get those answers, usually you get a buy-in much quickly. And that brings us to the next topic, or the point of discussion. Now, the path to digital transformation is never smooth, and the barriers are bound to crop up all the time. So let's take the expressway example a little bit further, right? you can only go as fast as the vehicle in front of you is going, right? So you obviously have a challenge in terms of whether you're going too slow because of other people slowing you down. But do you change lanes and speed up, which means that you need to power up, probably have more gas and spend more money. Also leave the other vehicle behind if you change lanes, remember that. So these are the two barriers which I think are the ones which are worth discussing, or maybe because of paucity of time we can't discuss anymore. One is changing mindset, especially with a multi-generational workforce. And secondly, looking beyond the return on investment to justify the cost of transformation. These are obviously two very challenging things which will come up from time to time as you further the journey. And if I can just start with you, Anurag, and look at how did you look at transforming or looking at these barriers of multi-generational task force, mindset change, and justifying the transformation costs beyond the ROI rationale. Maybe you can start. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. As I said, it's not this journey is it takes time, right? And leadership must understand that. So there is no shortcut to achieving the transformation. So that's something which we must understand as leaders of the company to be going forward, right? The people whom you have hired may not have the right skills to be then participating in this journey. So how do you then train, invest, and then make them part of this? So important is, of course, have the goal, have the clear goal which you are moving towards. Be ready to divert or adjust the goals as you feel as this journey continues and you feel challenges across. How are you communicating to the people? So communication with the people, both and for our industry where we have almost 3,000 colleagues ashore and almost 44,000 seafarers on board the ships. Right. How do you take their input into your planning and in scheme of things so that they feel that the input from them is extremely important, and then how you're going with that. So communication is the key. People, empowering them, retraining is critical, and having a clear goal, give people a solution, a system which helps them to deliver on their day-to-day activities, but at the same time, allows them to take the ownership and accountability for what they do, right? So this is extremely important because finally what you need is people who see the vision same as you and are supporting that. So this is extremely critical in my opinion.
And how do you say the ROI rationale kind of works with you in V-Ships? Has that been a discussion point? I'm sure it has, yeah.
Always been.
Yes.
I mean, when you create an in-house system which is integrated together, and integrating various functions of technical and commercial, operational ship management, it is a huge investment, right? So every time and many times you probably cannot monetize the results and expectations, but what you really are investing in is a system which your customers see as open, transparent, be able to participate in, have the capability to generate data that is needed, so it's fit for purpose and for future. The decarbonization and ESG are critical points that the criticality of the system needs to be managed and with the people together going forward. So
Sure.
This is I think the ROI comes with customer satisfaction, be able to continuously, consistently deliver across all offices and all the people together with all the people together. This is where I think you will really see the value coming out of all your investment.
Sure. So that's an interesting way to do it. Maybe I continue with the ship management side, and Demetris, you want to kind of add on to how you in Columbia Ship Management look at both these challenges.
Yeah. I mean, without repeating what was said already, I mean, first of all, we are a very global company, so you have to consider we have presence in over 25 countries, a large amount of seafarers, a lot of people in the office. So the barriers, of course, are huge because you have age differences, you have cultural differences, and all these are huge challenges. What we have done is to be able to cope with these challenges is, first of all, there needs to be a clear message from the CEO to everyone involved, including the seafarers. And then you have to, what we did is you have to engage everyone. People need to be engaged in the process. That's how they accept the process. We did Champions Leagues campaigns on ideas, incentivizing and rewarding people that came up with ideas which were implemented. Setting up teams that were involved in the development, including bringing seafarers to the office on St. Codman for several months involved in the process. Training is very important. If you want people to accept things, you have to show them that their life is becoming easier, their jobs are becoming easier. So training it was a very important element. And of course, in the development process, functionality and ease of use is important. So, people accept things, are more willing to accept things when their life is made easier and it's not complicated. So those are the key factors we've concentrated on during that journey. On the return of investment, is what I mentioned in the beginning. We believe that ship management has to evolve to still remain compelling. So for us, the return on investment is pretty much securing a future for the company, a long-term future for the company. I think without this evolution, transformation, and really having a compelling service offering to your clients, and the digital transformation is key to that. You won't be around in the future. You just won't be able to compete. So for us, the argument of return on investment is pretty much that.
Okay, great. Maybe I ask SK to continue, and then finally we go to Andrew in the end. Yeah, SK?
Yeah, change is never easy, right? So when you talk about transformation, you talk about introducing new technology, there's an element of change there. And I think people, when you talk about multi-generational stuff, if you tell someone who has been doing something the same way for 20 years, and you tell him, okay, now we're going to change it. So his first reaction would be, why? Right? So if it has worked for him, so why change? And the second part is that after a while he realized that, okay, if you're going to automate what I'm doing, then do I still have a job? Right? So, yeah. So to me, basically, it's the communication. It is basically showing them how we can make his or her job easier, faster. Because I think in shipping, a lot of us are still using Excel. People, even like in our business, when we do something as simple as voyage estimates, right? Before we plan, in planning a voyage, when we put the cargoes together to look at whether are we going to do that voyage or whether it's going to be a profitable voyage, etc. We still use, some of us, although we have a system, but some of us still use Excel. And everyone has their own version of Excel, right? So what we're trying to do is that recently we made a decision to change our voyage management system. So we are going through that process right now. It's going to take a while. But people obviously will always ask, okay, look, I have this feature right now. Will I still have it in a new system, right? But for us, what we're trying to do is, I think in the past, we tend to look at customization. But right now, I think we just want to keep it simple. We look at standardization. Because I think it comes to time also we need to ask ourselves, if that particular information, we always prepare that report, we always want that, is it still valid? Do we still need it? Do we still need to do that? Maybe it's time in changing how we work. It's also an opportunity for us to ask, are those things that we've done, some of the processes, some of the reports, are they still relevant? Right? So, but again, some people rely on these reports, so to them it's relevant. But for others, it's like, why do it? And when it comes to ROI, I personally look at it from a very simple perspective, right? So if someone is doing a task that takes an hour a day, so if I digitalize that, if I automate that, he or she will save an hour a day. So that's an hour times 5 times 300 days, etc. So I think there's a lot of return on investment. We can also quantify that. as in what's the hourly wage, etc. So that's the amount that we will save, right? So keep it simple, talk to the people, and change. Like I say, change is never easy. Transformation is a journey. There should not be an end goal. It is a journey.
Yep.
Right. It's an ongoing journey I was with a company previously where they go through transformation every year. So after a while, I was like, so what is the end goal? So then the chairman told me there's no end goal. It is a journey.
Sure. Interesting. All right. Andrew, your perspectives.
I can't find anything I can disagree with what the other speakers mentioned. They're all valid. As I mentioned, I think at the lowest or the most basic level you can find, there are certain pain points that need to be addressed, right? And you have to address those pain points as part of your transformation journey. Otherwise, forget about the big picture. It's not going to resonate, right? And then there are many ways about which you can go about doing it. But maybe if I just take a step back and look at it from the point of view of change management at the industry level, because I think all of you are trying to transform your entities in a ecosystem which is in itself evolving. And I think recognizing this evolving ecosystem is going to be very critical. And to the extent that there are players within this ecosystem that can actually move the needle, I think those are the ones that you might want to think about as you look at change management at your organizational level, who you want to team up with, who you want to partner with. I think that's going to be very critical. So in the case of the Maritime Port Authority, we are not in the business of shipping, but we are in the business of making sure that as a hub port, as a logistics hub, we continue to function. We do have some levers in our portfolio. We're the world's largest bunkering hub. We're the world's largest transshipment hub. So the likes of PSA, the likes of our bunkering, and MPA itself being very pro-business in its orientation are all levers you can leverage upon. And you have this amazing ecosystem of players in Singapore. I mean, all of them had, in one way or the other, justified to their headquarters back home why Singapore is a place to be, right? The question is, how do you bring everyone together? So that was the key thing that was on the minds of myself and my colleagues as we thought about the transformation effort itself. Sure, there is an internal transformation and all the things that everyone has said. It's important to sort of bring everyone along to see that this change is tangible. And my colleagues, my former colleagues that are here will agree with me that we spend so much effort in our work plans just to demonstrate the very little progress we make each time with the stories narrated from the individuals from within the organization as we roll out each part of the tech transformation effort itself. But if you abstract yourself to the level of then how do you bring the rest of the industry along? I think here is where the conversation gets more interesting because you obviously have leaders in a pack, right, in every industry. And what are the leaders in a pack doing? I mean, they could be laggards from an overall industry transformation point of view, or they could be first movers, right? And the first movers obviously are doing it from a point of enlightened self-interest, but nonetheless, they can move the needle because of the market share that they have. So if you look at the big container shipping lines, your Maersk, your CMA CGM, your MSC, and I hear MSC has now overtaken Maersk, maybe there's a new leadership there, but nonetheless, they are the big movers. And it's good to see that they are actually taking on areas like sustainability, decarbonization, ahead of what some experts may say ahead of time, because some of these solutions are not ready as yet, but nonetheless, they are signaling the direction in which they are taking, and they are trying to bring along the rest of their ecosystem. And you have to ask yourself whether you're part of the ecosystem or you're not part of the ecosystem, because there's no point trying to transform yourself as an island of its own, because you need to know the other moving parts, where they're heading, right? So that's one direction. Digitalization, I think, arising from COVID, if you are not on the digitalization bandwagon, I think you've lost the plot. Right? I think that's totally critical. It can be as simple as just digitalizing your records and making sure, or even you have the latest version of Excel spreadsheet, because I think you are just going to expose yourself to more cyber attacks that is taking place. I mean, with all these legacy systems and all these problems. So that's the challenge at the industry level you have to confront. And you can't do this all by yourself. So you have to form coalitions. You see the big boys forming coalitions. The smaller ones can also form coalitions of your own. And you know no one will have the right answer to this until everyone brings their solutions to the table and start collaborating. I think we can think in those terms of trying to shape within and also trying to shape without in whatever way that you can work alongside these evolving conversations. I would strongly advocate that you plug yourselves into all these developments around digitalization, sustainability, decarbonization, because all these will actually help eventually to move the overall needle, and also coming back to your point about ROI, bring that ROI time frame nearer to where it is, and also then attract the new funding from the likes of players like ourselves, your BlackRocks, your whatsoever, who will then start putting in funding into this space, which I understand is a bit slow in coming in, notwithstanding the fact that we are trying to spur innovation through startups and so on and so forth. But nonetheless, I think the outside world needs to see that this industry is serious in its transformation efforts before they are going to pour in more funding.
Absolutely. Yep, those are very valid points. And obviously, they are interesting tips as well. I just have a couple of observations from my experience when I was involved in the transformation. Legacy is a big challenge. And one of the things that has happened because of the legacy is that people in the shipping companies traditionally seem to be becoming more process experts than deal makers. They think that understanding the processes and the systems is the main part of their job, and the deal making is kind of subsequent to that. So obviously with automation, one of the things we realized was that we need to speed up the deal making aspects and automate the process aspects as such. And eventually we have to retrain people for that. So I would remember going to negotiation classes and inside selling was being taught to us in Klaveness. So suddenly we had a very different mindset because of that. So that's probably one of the tips that I can probably mention. The other thing on the ROI, when we set up the business unit, which was going to head transformation, which I headed, we actually made sure that all the business units contributed to that particular position. It was not something which was budgeted separately by the management on their own. The business units were my customers, and they were the guys determining how and what I needed to do to deliver and solve the pain points. So it was quite interesting as a model, and I think still exists as a model. So, but you mentioned, Andrew, very correctly that what has changed in the recent times is more about ecosystems. Now, leading your own company within your company, a transformation is not easy itself. But just imagine if you have to lead an ecosystem where you have competitors, you have got people who are probably having different directions that they are moving in, but you need to consolidate, collaborate, and even try and cooperate with those challenges which are well beyond individual companies' spheres. Digitalization, decarbonization, and others. So we've got examples like Pier 71 and others bringing people together. I know there are others out there as well. But maybe I can start with you, Andrew, to just understand how do you, for example, Temasek and your experience in MPA earlier, how do you bring these competitors together? What kind of leadership qualities do you really need to build on? Because it's not the usual leadership that is needed. It's something which is extraordinarily different, right?
Yes. Well, I'll keep my remarks brief so that the rest can have a chance to also chime in here. I think, Mathur, you mentioned about bringing people the right skill sets, and that's absolutely critical. I mean, the current CTO in MPA is actually from the Infocoms Development Authority, which was brought in outside of the industry itself, because you need someone who is obviously understands a thing or two about digitalization. The gentleman who is now running our OpsTech effort within MPA is our former submarine commander who knows something about sophisticated systems, right? So you need to have that personnel, the right fit of people coming in, working alongside the teams to bring about that transformation itself if you want to have a step change. I mean, there's nothing wrong with working with the current teams, but you need to find ways to beef up your current teams with augmented talent. But from the perspective of a port regulator and an ecosystem builder, it's obviously going to be quite different from the perspectives of the likes of Klaveness, V-Ships, and so on. we have to think about it in terms of how to catalyze the industry's efforts. I touched a bit about that in my earlier remarks. I won't go through that. But you also have to think of it in terms of the market space, because when you look at the market in Singapore, it's huge, right? And you have certain monopolies, legacy licenses you've given, and for good reason, because the market cannot take more than one player or so, or it cannot provide any more efficient a service than the current incumbent provides based on the standards you have prescribed. But you are not ceding the entire market to one operator. I mean, the most logical would be PSA to do everything, right? But is that the best? Is that the best solution, right? And then when you think about digitalization, I think that's where the conversation gets a lot more interesting. And I would suggest strongly that those of you that are looking at this start looking at it less from a shipping and maritime perspective. That's important as a background layer. But start looking at it from a technological transformation perspective and the different layers of abstraction you would apply to say, for example, the way Amazon or Google, or for that matter, Mathur will look at the future of where they see the market space for the metaverse. Do you want to play in the infrastructure layer? Do you want to play in the layer of standards protocols? Do you want to play in the area of the creation part? Or do you want to play in the applications part? I think this thing is also going to take place in the maritime sector, particularly as digitalization takes off. And the last thing you want to be is at that bottom part of that food chain where you're the most commoditized part of it. So as you embark on a transformation effort, think in terms of these few layers, because I think this is going to be a critical part in terms of how the industry itself will transform, and you will see new players coming in that will provide the solutions, manage your assets, including ships as digital assets, right? And also coming out with new services and so on and so forth. And the last thing you want is to be just operating the ship and, you know, having to fund it as well. So I think that's the greatest elephant in the room as you embark on your digitalization effort. This is beyond what the crew, your engineers will see. They have their jobs to run, and you have to make sure you empower them as best as you can. But at the industry transformation level, I think, you know, when we look at it, when we look at the disruption of the marketplace, I think it's a different lens you have to start applying to it.
Great, absolutely. That's a good starting point. So maybe, Demetris, you want to add in terms of how you see an ecosystem development and what kind of leadership do you need to maybe change in Colombia going forward?
I'm going to disappoint you a little bit on this one, because as ship managers, we haven't evolved greatly to the stage of cooperating with our competitors. But I very much agree with what Andrew said. That's probably the step that the maritime industry needs to take, especially on the ship management side. I mean, our cooperation is very much limited at the moment when it comes to digital transformation with partners and suppliers rather than competitors, and also with clients where we would partner up for the development of something new. You know, at the end of the day, these kind of relationships to matter or to be interesting, stakeholders have to firstly both, or how many there may be, bring value to those relationships. And at the same time, you have to manage the expectations of all these people involved in the ecosystem. But like I said, I'm going to disappoint you. I don't have a lot of experience to give you of what we've done, but I have to very much agree with what Andrew said, and it ties into what I mentioned before, that especially ship management has to evolve to be compelling, and part of that is also the cooperations, just like described by Andrew.
Sure, absolutely. SK, any experience from G2 Ocean side? Especially you have, of course, two organizations coming together. Now, of course, it's one organization, but how do you see that ecosystem developing for G2 Ocean?
So for us, actually, we're dealing with three different companies: Gearbox, Greystar, and G2 Ocean. So obviously, there's cross-functional teams set up. So we do have that cooperation within the three companies. But more about, when you talk about collaboration, right, I think it's a very nice word. A few years ago, when you attend conferences, the buzzword was digitalization collaboration, right? So now it's decarbonization collaboration, right? So I think collaboration in shipping is a very nice thing to say, to have, but it's very difficult. Because there's this fear, it's back to this fear of, if I'm going to share my information, right? Like, I'm not going to share my information with my competitors, but I want to have that information. take recently, we were looking at some system and where that's related to the ports, right? Waiting for berth, etc. So, but for us to participate, we need to provide our information. But of course, we want to know what our competitors are doing. But then the first question we ask the service provider, can we sort of not provide our information? But so it is a journey, right? So I think we've gone through that. We are providing information. So I think basically collaboration, when you talk to, like, I agree with Demetris, I think shipping, whether it's shipping, ship management, etc., it's a challenge.
It is. Yeah, sure. Anurag, you've also faced the same challenge, I presume.
Yeah, I mean, challenges are there, but I personally feel that collaboration is not to be feared of. I think it also offers an opportunity when you collaborate with different partners for future improvements, right? Because it allows you to harness the integration and the information sharing, as we have heard. I mean, V Group. I just said V Group itself. I mean, we are a group with almost 16 companies, underlying companies, and we collaborate even with our competitors to a great extent. So we have group companies with for example, GMT is one of the largest travel company owned by V Group. We during the COVID times in 2020 and 2021. We almost did 45,000 seafarers transfers from ship and to the ship and from the ships for all stakeholders, right, including competition, because we were in a position to do that, and with the chartered flights and other arrangements, it was not possible for smaller companies to participate, but for a company like us, we were lucky to be or fortunate to be in that space. Similarly, for catering, we serve over 2,500 ships at this moment across the globe, and more, and similarly SeaTech and other brands that V Group has. But within shipping, ship management or shipping operations, we have learned that collaboration pays really. We partnered with, for example, for ship management, safety is a huge concern, right? We all owe it to our seafarers and our colleagues that they come back home safely. And how do you improve on that, right? So we partnered with Shell in 2016, almost now 5 years, where we participated in this joint collaboration of 10 companies. We were one of the founding members, where we started this initiative called High-Low, high impact, low frequency occurrence, where you learn from the leading events and the near misses on board ships, and you learn from all the experience of other companies together. Absolutely. In a proactive manner to assess the risks and what might be coming, which way industry is, right, or how our seafarers are faring. So it gives you intel which allows you to make decisions, run campaigns, issue fleet alerts to our seafarers on board our ships, which proactively then advises them on what to focus on, right? Sure. In order to be safe and not having similar things ourselves. So I'm very proud because it's an extremely interactive, and every ship contributes to it. So there is a lot of empowerment between the people. Absolutely. and how do and they see the results when they get these learnings from that. They see that what their input has given them back. So it's extremely positive development. Also, I mean, we hear so much about decarbonization, and so V Group has of course partnered with Musk McKinley Moner Group Center for decarbonization and the next steps to it. So all the things that we have heard about, alternate fuels, new technologies, how to help our customers in this journey towards decarbonization as a goal, is something which is evolving. Absolutely. And we are very proud to be cooperating with the industry on.
Yep, thank you so much. I think those are good examples, and obviously we see a lot more collaboration on the decarbonization space in general. The GCMD itself is 6 companies coming together. So obviously that's a very valuable proposition. At this point, I would like to open up any questions from the audience, both physical and virtual, before we end up the closing remarks after the questions are done. Any
Sorry,
questions?
but if I may ask, Anurag.
Yeah, sorry.
Anurag, the corporation that you mentioned, there are 10 companies on safety, right? Are there other ship management companies in that group?
Yes, there are. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
You're not one of them,
it's
which
together with Shell. It doesn't. I mean, just to be honest, it doesn't ask you to reveal your secrets, right? But it's a kind of partnership together for the overall good of the industry as a whole, right?
Absolutely.
So this is where you're driving.
Great.
Right?
Yep, you have a question right there. Yeah.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Pierre Carazze from ABS. About cooperation, just a statement I have is we definitely have to change the way to approach it. The shipping business has been based for centuries on the understanding the weakness of the competitors and play with it, right? So we have to understand between us the subject where we really have to cooperate. Otherwise, we cannot invest at the same time limited resources and waste a lot of money and time, right, on the subject. So from everybody, ship management, classification society, this is something that we really have to sit down and think about where we can work better together. But I have a question for this specific panel, which is about, one of the concerns I personally have for the future is to have the people working on this business with the proper focus, commitment, preparation on the future. In a sense, we have in front of us very high risk on cybersecurity, new type of fuels on board, right? And we have to see these people very concentrated on what they are doing and working in a proper way. So the talent recruitment and talent management is an issue because our business is not considered anymore sexy enough to attract the talents available in the university, right? So my question to you guys is, what are you doing in order to attract this talent and manage this talent for your business today?
I can take it. I mean, from our side, very valid what you're saying. I mean, from what we are doing is, first of all, we are recruiting from non-traditional sources of the maritime industry, first of all, because you need a new kind of expertise, a new kind of people into the organization. The sexy part is correct. What we're also doing is we are also creating separate companies. So in other words, IT companies and so on, we will recruit. So people are not necessarily joining a maritime company, but an IT company. So we're doing that. And I think these are the keys to the future. You have to, it's what I mentioned before, is we have to transform what we're doing to be compelling. And it's not just for clients, but it's also for people that will join your organizations.
I think that's very interesting to hear what you have just said, and it comes back to my point about how you reframe the industry as a whole. So you have a traditional shipping entity, you have one that looks into maybe digital solutions, which is more inclined for the newer generation of folks who will join the industry to come in and join this sector itself. Mind you, even for the likes of where I work currently now, the competition is intense. The tech players, the big tech, the e-commerce players, they are recruiting all across that spectrum, which we are also recruiting in, because they are going into so many spaces and the lines are really quite blurred. So if you don't redefine the roles within your firm to align yourself with where the overall industry direction is going, I think you're going to lose this cohort itself. So you have to reframe your own business model. There has to be elements that point towards where you're heading towards the future, which will be more digital, more sustainable, more decarbonized. I think these are the things that actually excite the younger generation, where they see there's a higher sense of purpose in terms of what the company is moving to. Even for Temasek itself, we're undergoing this Temasek 2030 transformation. And now we've always positioned ourselves as a forward-thinking institution investor as well as a steward. But now we've come up with a higher sense of purpose, which is so every generation prospers. And that is accompanied by the fact that we also have different funding pots that now cater to different time frames and horizons from the short term to the long term, because we are now prepared to take longer term stakes in some of these areas that we just talked about over sustainability, decarbonization, and for that matter, climate change itself.
I mean, just one comment from my side. I mean, as previously mentioned, I mean, this shipping has been an industry which is very inward-looking and has not been so much welcoming talent from outside. But that's something which should not be feared of, right? I mean, we should be inviting talents from outside maritime industry with transferable skills, which really bring value to your company, because the requirements are growing. Requirements are really growing. And one point is, of course, I also feel that shipping is an industry which can do with more gender diversity. So bringing more women into the industry onshore and especially on ships is something which we all should be promoting more and more. Yeah.
Everyone is a talent, right? So when we talk about how to attract talent, I think basically it's what's the value proposition for the company, right? How you sell the company to the prospective talent that's coming in. So we recently did a major reorg where I tripled our headcount in Singapore, right? So hiring has been challenging, but we managed to fill out all the positions, right? So basically, it's a challenge because I think in Singapore in the 90s and the early part of 2000, there wasn't a lot of focus on shipping. Right, so in Singapore these days, it's very difficult to find talent that's in their, let's say, in their 40s, that range. But over the last 10 years, I think MPA, together with the various institutions, have done great. Right, so now we've got the NTU Bachelor of Maritime Studies, and you know, they continue to produce 100 graduates a year. So we do tap into that as well. So basically, I think it's easier to find talent these days. But it's still a challenge, but there's more. If you want to find shipping people, it's easier to find. But like what Andrew said, and Demetris as well, we also try to bring in people from not shipping. But it's a challenge.
Sure,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And once you find the talent, you better keep it, right?
Absolutely.
Invest in that.
So I just have a couple of points to make very quickly. Yeah, sorry. I'll just finish with the talent part, because obviously it's a very interesting point for me. This is one of the few industries which doesn't have any CPD at all. So remember that you're actually training people on the job and you're constantly updating them. And the other thing is, of course, the minute the data becomes more available across the organization, usually the talent starts to spring up much better, because keeping the information to yourself has always been a challenge in the past traditional legacy system. So these are 2 points that I would like to mention. But yeah, there's another question. Please, go ahead.
Thank you very much for an engaging discussion. My name is Paul Kasman. I'm from Innovation Norway. I'm quite interested in the collaboration aspect and the success criteria to foster it, particularly maybe between competitors. I think that's an interesting area and also necessary area. In Norway, we have various kinds of clusters. We also have some maritime clusters where we have asset owners, shipyards, maritime equipment providers, and so on. Competitors, some are complementary, some are not. And we try to foster collaboration within innovation and internationalization. But I'd be interested to hear your view on what are the success criteria to make this collaboration happen. Because, like you say, there is still some room to maneuver here. So I'd like to get your comment on that. How can we make it work?
Who wants to go first? Anurag?
Yeah, for us as we group, of course, collaboration with partners depends on the end goal, right? What we are trying to achieve. And for us, because it's always focused on the customers and his needs and how those needs are taken care of, is important. So we will find, if we find value in a proposition from potential partners where we can enhance this experience, where we can do, in terms of our motto of flawless service delivery to our customers, if we can deliver on that, we are open for more partnerships and see how this gels together with with the company objectives.
Sure. Maybe a quick word from any of the other three panelists, if nothing else. No?
I think,
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think
Let's
for collaboration, there must be trust. There must be trust in the partners, and there must also be a common goal, right? Because ultimately it's what's in it for you, what's in it for me, right? It's like, maybe look at collaboration from a courtship perspective, right? So between the girl and the guy, so there must be a common goal, and there must be reasons why they want to be together. So collaboration between companies, trust is there. Trust must be there. The common goal must be there. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Absolutely. I think we are well over our time, so we'll have to unfortunately bring this to an end. I'd just like to finish with a quote that I remember reading somewhere, saying a leader's role is not to make sure that every room in the house is lighted, but to make sure that he communicates where the light switches are in every room. So as long as you can manage to get that going, I think you should be able to get people to be less afraid of dark and new paths. So thank you so much for a lovely conversation. And thank you so much to all our panelists, and thanks for the audience. Unfortunately, we couldn't take anything from the virtual audience, but thank you very much for your time. I look forward to the rest of the conference.